Hi! Andrew here.
Ming.
And actually, we have a special guest today that we'd like to bring in.
Paris Prism Power Makeup!
Hey guys. Hi, so this is our best friend Paris. And so we want to invite Paris today for a very special topic. So we want to talk about the racism and also what is, Japan's racism look like? Where does Japan have racism?
I mean, Japan doesn't have any racism apparently, so we can just go home. Episode over. Episode over.
Transform ourselves out.
Maybe you can start sharing some, personal experience about something you've encountered unfairness in Japan.
I mean, I think that being stopped by the police in Japan is a big one that really affects people based on what they're wearing and their skin tone, really, from my experience. But yeah, I've been stopped 8 or 9 times, so on average, at least once a year, sometimes twice a year. The very first time I was standing in front of the station, waiting for my friend, and some police came up to me. I had only been in Japan for like 2 days, so I didn't have my residence card, because of course, if people don't know, you need to have a residence card when you're living in Japan.
Right.
And so the police can use that as an excuse to talk to you, because they technically don't have any right to ask you, to search you if you're not doing something illegal, but at the same time, you have to have your card, not having that as an illegal act. So they try to use that gray area to kind of, entrap you in a situation where they can start asking you questions and potentially search your bag and just kind of harass you.
So one thing I encountered during Japan is every time I'm looking for housing, change to a new place, and the agent always have to check with the owner of the place and if they're okay with Chinese. And sometimes they will reject Chinese just right after hearing my nationality. So that's I think one of the part that I feel I was a little bit, getting those unfair treatment because of my nationality.
But that is something that happens to every single foreigner in Japan, regardless of where their nationality is. I would agree with you that Chinese people actually get it worse than Americans, but it's the difference between 80% of the properties are unrentable versus 90% of the properties are unrentable.
I've definitely, in the gay community, I get these things. I mean, we talk about it often about if you go to a bathhouse or something, or you go to even an onsen or something, somewhere where you're in close proximity to someone, and they realize, a foreigner, it's beside them, and they're not necessarily I've had people, I've brushed by people and been like this, and people have literally jumped. And that's a really, for me personally, that's a really hurtful reaction. Having someone brush up to you and then literally that, it's shock or disgust, that sort of reaction, not
maybe they're just
brushing,
unfamiliar with people touching them.
No,
because
no. Think about it, and it's not at all. No, it's not at all. It's not at all. When I see 2 Japanese people interacting and a touch is unwanted, the rejection is more a sumimasen, or it's a brush, And I'm not saying it always happens to me like that, where someone is shocked and pushes away, but it definitely happens. It's not, and I can see them rejecting other people in entirely different ways. So for me, I can't help but feel it's literally oh, foreigner, get away from me, don't touch me, sort of thing.
I'll give you one example to keep it nice and gay for you. There was a boy.
Gay channel.
There was a boy. Hooked up a few times, and he was cute or whatever. And he doesn't live in Japan. He came to Japan for the weekend or whatever. And he was like, "Oh, let's meet up." And I didn't hear from him. Nothing came from him. And then he messaged me, and he's like, "Oh, sorry. I went to my friend's house, and we were gonna have a party, and I was gonna invite you, but then they said that was a party only for Asian and white guys, and so I had to respect the wishes of the host." And that's when we talk about the erasure or the inability to actually even fully participate, because unless you're fitting these certain molds that people want you to be into, you're not what people are desiring to fit, whatever they think they need to do to please their friends or please society.
first of all, people message me on apps, on Grindr or on Nine Monsters, and we have a nice conversation, introduce ourselves. Then I tell them that I'm Chinese, right? And they will disappear. They were interested in my profile or my pictures, but once I revealed that I'm not Japanese, I'm Chinese, they kind of like got away, So I think that's one small episode that happened to me.
I would say it is a form of racism because it happens once you share that element.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Regarding
it's like, had they talked to you and just mid conversation, you're just like, oh, what are you doing? Oh, today I'm working, and block or something like that. It's different between like, I'm Chinese or I'm from China and then block. That seems a little bit too,
If you take a look at that, like some of these guys are expecting that you're gonna be one thing or another, and they're kind of putting you into a box based on how they look at you. And then some of those guys won't approach you when they find out that you're Chinese. And then if you look at certain people who are obviously look a different way, like think of all of those people plus the people that actually you can approach that wouldn't even talk to someone who was maybe that. Well, there's a growing number of guys who just are like not interested in white guys at all, but yeah, that happens. Or even approach like black guys or really dark skin, like North Vietnamese people or Indian people, Indonesian people, because it's like super obvious in the front. Oh, like no, like scrolling through or even just like filtering out. Like, oh no, I don't want to see any of that on my preference, so I'm not even gonna no. Or like it's just like they just go through and just like block people before they even have to talk to them. So yeah, what you're seeing is like like a tip of that deeper
the
issue.
structure.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, you tell me what we think about this.
Yeah.
But I find I get consistently put into a box where people expect me to be a top because I'm white. So they look at me, and the amount of times people show like disappointment, like, oh, like they'll even use the word like motainai when it's like you should be a top because you're white or something like that. So that sucks. I don't know. Do you think is that?
So I'm a little bit confused about the concept, right? About stereotypes and racism, because I feel racism is a bigger picture.
Yeah, so this is the thing, like the system of racism is the system that orders people in a certain way in order to keep one class of people on the top, another class of people on the bottom, using their skin color as the mechanism, right? White person coming over and having certain expectations like that they need to fulfill in order to remain in on like the pedestal that like they're put on when they come in. If you don't fulfill those expectations, then yeah, you're like, oh, why aren't you playing by the game, like playing by the rules? But conversely, what do you think happens to black bottoms that come to Japan?
Yeah, I imagine it's the same. It's
It's
probably
really-
worse.
I want to
Yeah.
hear story,
It's
right?
Yeah.
He had a really difficult time. So all of those same things that you experienced, plus all the extra stuff, and I think that's sometimes the thing that's lost a little bit. Like it's not like I'm this kind of, I'm white so I have this struggle, or I'm black so I have this struggle, I'm Chinese so I have this struggle. Everyone has the same exact struggles of being human and being gay, and then you get extra shit piled. And so it's not like your struggle is your struggle, right? It's not like the things that you feel, the struggles you go through are less important than other people, but it's like, well, we want a society where everyone can just go through their own shit and their own problems without having to worry about, this extra stuff. My last white ex,
Okay.
from college, and when we were dating, he said to me, and he doesn't even remember that he said this, like, I was really worried about dating you because I was worried my friends would think that I had jungle fever. And I think that's the way that racism really permeates its way through the gay community, because people start to segregate themselves into appropriate circles so that they don't seem to be so they don't get ostracized by their friend group. It's the same way in the gay community. But then you catch them in the bathroom sucking a black dick. And that's why people have the signs, right? Like, don't suck black dicks if you don't support black issues, right? Because, you know, like, you shouldn't be fetishizing and just using people as tools, like, for your sexual pleasure, because that's what you secretly want. But then on the surface, you ignore those people, or you only date, like, people that you think are going to be, like, racially appropriate, and that's something that happens like in Japan.
Well, that's what I was gonna say.
And
so that happens.
America.
Okay.
Oh, it definitely like happens here. Like, I know that it happens to like white guys a little bit here too, but the idea of being kept as a secret like side BBC versus being paraded as like the white trophy is like a huge difference. Give each person a chance, like, for who they are, and you can find yourself liking anybody of any color. Been all over. Don't limit yourself.
I mean, Neapolitan. It's a pop. That's what it is, right?
Get that strawberry.
Get that strawberry. Get that strawberry.
Get that
You know,
strawberry.
you're missing out. Just
Get
a
that
little
chocolate
bit.
chip cookie dough.
Sailor Moon says, bye now.